Good evening to all of you. When Anurag met me a week back, along with Satish, he said that we are going to relaunch CMS and we want to make an impact in the Indian marketplace. And we really want you to talk about how we could do something very different as compared to what has traditionally been done. So I've been kind of scratching my head and saying, how do I do this? So finally I decided I'll be honest. I'll just speak from the experience that I've had, kind of business models that I have seen and what has worked elsewhere. And it's really for Anurag and his team from CMS to see whether any of that has applicability in India and whether it will work in the Indian context or not. Because we all know that India is very different from everywhere else. What works overseas doesn't necessarily work in India. And while talking to Anurag, some of the things that we were kind of discussing about how Indian market has changed. Historically, we all thought that Indian market is, in some ways, in a good market because people are open-minded. New companies, new ideas always get a shot. And this is very different from some of the Western markets who are very risk-averse. So if you go to many parts of Europe, you cannot sell a new product or cannot be a new company trying to sell something there. People are very, very risk-averse. Whereas in India, you could be a brand new company, want to sell a brand new product, and at least you'll get a hearing. And maybe some people will actually buy. Of course, they are price sensitive, they may be a little bit less brand sensitive, but that has been how the Indian market is. What has changed, of course, over the last, I would say, few years is the market has grown bigger, and we have seen the entry of multinational companies. IT has become more mature. So when buying behavior is different, people are a little bit more careful about how they buy and what they expect out of their vendors. Also, I think it's the time of transmission from overseas to India has kind of virtually disappeared. So whenever new technology gets introduced anywhere else in the world, almost same time, the same technology becomes available here, and because people are more willing to try new things, it probably gets adopted and implemented much faster in India than many other places. So all the things that we hear about, SMAC, which is mobile, cloud, analytics, and software as a service, there are many instances where, implementations have happened, people have used it, it is not something that is new or untried in India. At the same time, because of the pressure of performance, I think the tolerance levels are getting kind of reduced. So, earlier it was, people tried their best, and if some things failed, you kind of blamed it on the environment, you said this is what will happen, but people were tolerant of some gaps and mistakes and, things like that, but that tolerance levels are getting really compressed. So people are kind of saying, no, this is my business critical operation. I cannot really accept that you'll have breaks or failures in business process. And IT has got to that point where IT actually impacts business delivery to end customers, and it makes a difference if you fail somewhere. At the same time, what has also happened is because scale has got bigger, the linear function, saying that if you have 100,000 employees, you typically support maybe 100,000 computers. But today with smartphones and other devices, maybe you support 200,000 devices. The Indian customer is not willing to pay twice that much just because people have multiple devices. So we have to really find a different way to address that need. And it can't simply be linear, saying that if 100,000 devices cost X, 200,000 devices will cost 2X, and that's how customers will pay for it. That readiness is simply not there to pay that 2X money, just because people have more devices or there is more demand. So I think that's the nature of the market. So in this kind of market, how do we create disruption? And I think that's what Anurag and his team are kind of endeavoring to do, saying that here's an opportunity. We have entered in this place, we are new players or a new management team, and we want to create disruption. So this is more a dialogue, and again, as I said, my experience looking at companies, dealing with clients, dealing with new technologies which have come about. So I would say I will talk about 5 or 6 things that I've seen work elsewhere, and maybe there's an opportunity to leverage some of that knowledge and experience here. So I remember, I think 2007 or 2008, we were in a competitive situation with one of the top credit card processors in the US, and it was, from our perspective, very straightforward business. We had done that kind of projects year in, year out. We knew what to build, we knew what the measure of performance will be, and luckily we had certain special relationships. So there were only 2 people who were fighting that deal. It was us, and it was an unknown company. So we thought, well, it's a walkover. I mean, why are we wasting time? But still, since it was a process, we went, did the presentation, met top management, and we were saying that, okay, in a week's time we should get the order. So everybody was relaxed and planning for execution. When suddenly we were told that we are not going to win that deal. So we said, how is that possible? I mean, this is an unknown company, nobody's even heard about it. So why will we not win the deal? So they said, these are the SLAs they have offered, and their price is, like 40% lower than yours. Not only that, since a 5-year contract, each year the price actually drops. Whereas, given cost escalation and wage escalation, we had said, okay, there will be a 2% increase every year over the 5-year period. And mentally we were prepared saying that, okay, we'll level it out if the customer is very uncomfortable with this increasing cost. But 40% was unthinkable. How could anybody offer 40% lower? So we challenged, we said, impossible, can't be done. So, you're relying on some small vendor, and that who knows whether he'll be around or not 12 months from now, and then you'll come running back to us. Don't take such risks. He said, no, we have checked it out. This will work for us. So we actually went and investigated who is this company and how can they do such a thing. That company today is kind of famous. It's a company called IPsoft, and they have fundamentally changed how IT deliveries gets delivered. And it is a very specific thing. When you do infrastructure management, there are 3 levels of support that you offer. What we call level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is a kind of lowest level, where you say, oh, my password is, I forgot the password, somebody has to do password reset, or there is some basic failure on some side that has to be fixed. So somebody on the call center will pick up the phone, do a password reset, or do some small function like that, but needs a human being at the other end to be able to do it. And that, while it is low end, it is still takes maybe 40 to 45% of the workforce. So if you have a team of 100 people, 40 to 45% of the people actually do level 1 work. Level 2 is little next level, saying that, okay, I have a problem with the Microsoft Windows thing, so can you solve that problem? So that requires maybe sometimes automation, sometimes some human intervention. So we had done, proper planning, saying, okay, we'll use really kind of early graduates or sometimes diploma holders to do level 1, then we'll take a little bit more experienced people to do level 2 and so on. What we had not factored is this company has basically automated all of level 1. So there's no human beings. There's no human beings to do 40% of the work. It is entirely based on artificial intelligence and their ability to write, it's not code anymore, it is more than code, it is intelligence actually. So it understands what is the problem, it is able to correlate to the context, it is intelligent, it can solve the problem, and it can do it much faster. Over time, plus it learns. So it is not as if you do it once and second time, you have to, let's say, first time the system cannot solve and some human being intervenes and solves that problem. That learning actually goes back into their code base. So next time around that problem arises, there is no human intervention. So their statistic is that 90% of level 1 calls are actually fully automated. Level 2, it's almost 50%, and it improves over time. And one of the customers later told us that their experience is that there was 60% reduction in the productivity or improvement in productivity, and 55% improvement in the mean time of resolution. For level 1 support. This is just has been implemented for level 1 support. Technically, the same solution can work for a host of situations where it is not simply a rule-based solution that you want to find. This goes beyond rules, it goes to context and learning. And the more this kind of system becomes prevalent, I think a lot of work that today gets done in IT will be really up for questioning on whether this needs to be done at all or not. I think at least when I spoke to the people from Microsoft, they didn't think of themselves as system integrators. They think of themselves more as a technology company. So they are happy to partner with other people and say, use our technology, reduce the work. We are happy to license this technology to you. So if this is the model that becomes prevalent, and they are not the only one, there are 3 other companies who have similar approach to, I would say, automation and intelligent resolution. I think there is a serious question mark about how long our current model of doing IT services based on process efficiency and I would say low cost will survive. So that is one way you can think of creating disruption in the services space. There is another way to think about this, and again, based on my recent interaction with a company in the US. So everybody talks about SMAC, right, which is software as a service, mobile, analytics, and cloud. But the reality is that at least on mobile, there is very little depth or I would say not only depth, but there is very little comprehensiveness when it comes to services being offered to clients. The application business, where they do digital media, digital marketing, there is some part of it which is in the infrastructure side, there is some part of it which is the analytics side, but nobody can stand up and say, I understand mobile front to back, anything to do with mobile, whether it is a handset, whether it is the way to deliver ads on on a customer's mobile device. I know how to do it. This company has created that position in the US in the space of, I would say, 2 years. Some of it is homegrown, some of it is through acquisitions, and on that basis alone, they have created a business worth $300 million, growing 30% a year. So just deep specialization in an area, doing things front to back, and just standing out as compared to anybody else can create an opportunity. And they can go head to head with Accenture, they can go head to head with Wipro, and they win because they are the only guys who say we understand mobile, and that's the only thing we do for a living. So deep specialization and being able to do everything front to back can make a big difference and can create an opportunity to again create disruption in a relatively well-known space. A similar idea, but in a kind of little bit different context. And again, Matthew and maybe some of these people would have heard about it. This is again a company which is based in India, and we all thought it is impossible to do anything like this. So traditionally what happens is most large system integrators in India have kind of verticalized their organization. So they have a division which focuses on, let's say, banking, there's another one which does telecom, there's another one which does oil and gas, there's somebody else who does transportation. That's how they kind of divide their work. Through that process, they try to build industry knowledge so that when they talk to clients, they understand what the business process is, so they don't waste clients' time asking basic questions, but are able to get to the next level and actually offer advice to the client. And it works, and I think most clients actually appreciate the fact that this kind of specialization has taken place. But the real problem is that we always try to pair a bunch of business analysts with a bunch of techies. So there are people who do the business analysis, who will write the business process, and there will be technical people who will then interpret that and write code and develop systems. It is very difficult to get one individual who understands both the business process as well as those technology. That is, those kind of people can be counted on the fingertips even in large company. Those who can do deep understanding of technology and who understand the business process. And what happens is that because those people are so hard to find and so hard to build, you kind of spread them across your 20 or 30 clients so that nobody feels that they are not getting some portion of that magic dust. So this kind of sprinkled all over the place to make clients feel comfortable. There's a company in India which has chosen to build only that capability. Only that capability. They have people who both understand technology and business process, and there's nobody who says I'll do only technology or I'll only write business process flowcharts. They only have people who have both skills in the same individual and deep skills. It is not a smattering, it is a deep skill. That's number one. So look at the capability that exists in those people. But what is even more compelling, and here's where the magic is, they specialize in the industry verticals. Obviously, you cannot do it across multiple industry verticals. They have said they'll only solve difficult problems. They will not do run-of-the-mill work. They'll only solve difficult problems, and they'll solve those problems at prices which are typically 30% above top tier 1 Indian companies. Good, complex work done by great people at premium prices. They will not compete in RFPs. If the biggest client says, I want you to participate in this RFP, says, please don't bother me. Please look at all the other people who like to participate in RFPs. I will not participate in RFPs. Don't participate in RFPs. Don't discount prices. Only do difficult work. Run 40% EBITDA margin. And clients, and we spoke to clients, 100% satisfaction. Not one client had one bad thing to say about them. Never wanted to compare them with any other provider. Never said that price is too high. That was not a discussion at all. These are the guys who solved my problem. Is all that they wanted to say. This is something that we never imagined was even possible. And this is, again, India-based company, 90% of the people work out of India, so it's not as if they've hired a lot of local talent and they are able to kind of show a different face to the client, and only international clients. So it's a matter of just focus, resolve, and cracking the business model. Nothing else. Again, completely disruptive. They face all the tier 1 vendors, but their business is never lost. Very difficult to do. I admire their management team which has been able to do this. Very difficult to do. But they've done. Another area of disruption, and this is probably a little bit more on the lines of what Indian companies are used to. Because we are good at innovation, but most of our innovation is really business model innovation. Right? So I think what telecom companies have done on the prepaid side is really revolution. Asset light model, no risk on our collections, low price, still high margin, and large volumes. that is a great model. It is something that we have actually exported to the rest of the world. And along those lines, I think maybe at least I have seen that being practiced on the product side, IT products, software products, not so much on the services, but on IT product side. In the healthcare space, there are companies which will offer IT systems to hospitals and practitioners at 7,000 rupees per month, which is a phenomenal number. 7,000 rupees per month to offer full-fledged IT system to a practicing doctor or to a clinic is just phenomenal. And they do it because they can get the volume, you have to pay in advance, and it works like that. And the final thing, again, based on recent interactions with a lot of entrepreneurs on the software product side, they have thought about the Indian market completely differently. So they're based here, they build the product here. All their first, I would say maybe like 50, 100 customers are all Indian customers. They took anywhere from 2 to 5 years to perfect their product, to kind of develop all functionality, get it validated by clients. Now they have gone overseas, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America, and so on. If you look at their current business, at least the financial part of it, I don't think they make money in India. But they make very good margins overseas. So they didn't do it very consciously, but you kind of think about how they try to build a business. India is for learning, and the rest of the world is for earning. That's how they've constructed their software business. So you learn here and you earn outside. But if you try to do the other way around and try to go outside and learn, you'll never get a chance. The only opportunity you get in India is because you are familiar with the market. Indian clients are open. They'll welcome new entrepreneurs, new ideas, new systems. They are open to that experimentation. As long as the functionality is right, price point is right, you will get clients. So learn in India, earn outside India is the other model. And in real life, I would say, at least I know a couple of software companies which are doing that. Whether it is in digital media, whether it is in IT services in the healthcare side, not services, sorry, products on the healthcare side, that's how the business models evolve. So somebody trying to compete with them in India on commercial pricing is going to find it very difficult to succeed. So those are some ideas I thought I'll share with you, and this is really setting up for Anurag to say how he is going to come up with even brighter ideas than that to be able to make a big mark in the Indian marketplace with CMS. Anurag, really over to you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.